Hey guys, my name is Dane. I have a video today for the people that are going through the demonic harassment, the gang stalking, which I know is spiritual warfare. And so I want to tell some testimonies and then kind of break it down a little bit. How fear of death is a huge it's a huge leverage that the enemy uses. So I want to start out just reading a little bit of scripture to basically set up my point at the end. So this is in John chapter 8 verse 44 through I guess it's just 44. It says, you belong to the father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. So that's saying that, the devil has people that belong to him and they carry out his desires, right? It says, speaking of Satan, he says, he was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native tongue. For he is a liar and the father of lies. So that's pretty simple, right? The devil's been a liar since the beginning. He's always going to be a liar. When he's speaking, he's lying. So I'm going to tie in the fear of death and how he lies to basically keep you in fear and keep you controlled. So I want to tell a couple stories that happened to me involving, I guess you could call it the fear of death. People. So the first time this happened early on in, the demonic harassment phase, of what I was going through. I was just going through all the things that it involved. I won't go into details. You guys know, like I try to keep a scope on what I'm talking about, so it doesn't get all spread out and crazy with it, right? So I'm just speaking on fear of death, basically. So in this story that happened, I'm downtown and I'm in a real sketchy neighborhood. They sell crack down there, and I was up to no good. I was just moving around trying to make some moves, and I'm walking down this block and this dude's walking towards me and he's looking at me, right? And I look at his hands. He has one hand to his side and he has a plastic glove on, and then his other hand's in his sweatshirt, and so I'm watching him and his sweatshirt's kind of bulged out, and he's looking at me. And then he pulls out his hand. He has another plastic glove on, and he has a pistol in his hand. And I'm going through all this stuff where I'm getting threatened all the time. People are acting super weird towards me and aggressive, and I'm and I don't even know these people, right? And so I see that, right, and I'm immediately I'm gone. I just take off, track star. And so I'm running. I don't know how long I ran, but I got a few blocks away until I knew dude wasn't around. And I'm just man, that was obviously freaked me out pretty bad. Right? So at this point, I was getting pushed around a lot by fear. Again, I don't know this dude. I don't know why this was going on. But I was experiencing all these things that were ramping up my fear, right? I was getting threatened all the time, going through just weirdo experiences where I'm what is this? You guys know what I'm talking about when you're going through it, but it's a spiritual battle, right? And so as things progress, I experienced more things like this, and eventually, God showed me, was okay, has anyone touched you? And I had been out on the streets for a while, every day experiencing just these types of situations. And I realized I'm like, no, you know, there'd been times where I was so sure that they were going to get me, right? Because of what they said, the things I was seeing, right? So the enemy was lying to me, making it seem like he could do whatever he wanted. And God showed me that there was a limit. And if you read the book of Job, it's the same thing. God had put a limit. He said, you can do anything you want to, and you can't take his life. And so Satan has to get God's permission to come against those that belong to him, right? So he can't just do whatever he wants to when you belong to God. At this point, I was a believer, but I was stuck in my addictions bad. But this is why I view gang stalking as a good thing, because God used it to basically help me tighten up and purify me from fears and certain bad habits. It's like the trials by fire, right? Because I had been allowing the devil in my life. I had been giving him access to me through drug use and the way I was living. I wasn't consecrated to God. I wasn't doing things his way. So I'm in all these snares and things, right? So I go through this process of like, God shows me they're lying to you. They can't touch you, right? And I don't know if this is the case for everyone, but I honestly feel like most of the time it is, you know, because if they wanted to kill you, you'd be dead. Like, you think they have all this access to you and watching you all the time, and they have no chance to kill you or poison you. Like, I know people have stories about them getting in your house, all this stuff. Like, if they could kill you, you'd be dead. The amount of hatred that is coming towards you, like, that's a level of evil that it's complete evil, right? You guys know what I'm saying. It's like, if they're willing to do that, they're willing to kill you, because basically that's what they're doing slowly, right? They're destroying you in any way they can. They're trying to take your mind from you. They're trying to put wounds on you, trauma. Like, it's a form of torment and torture, right? And if they're willing to do that, I mean, they'd kill you if they can. So this is my point. I started going through these experiences, right? And then I learned how to put my faith in God, because I realized, like, this fear was driving me around. I mean, there was days where I spent all day running and trying to hide from these possessed people. You know, because I was like, they're gonna kill me. They're telling me that, like, they're showing up, they're following me. Everything I was seeing was telling me they're gonna get me, right? And so I got to the point where I'm like, oh man, I feel the Holy Spirit right now. Like, I decided in my mind, I said, I'm not running anymore. And like, God gave me this like boldness where it was like, he was just like, trust me. Woo! Man, and it was so powerful, because I realized once I started standing firm against them, it's like the power was stripped from them in a large way. Like, and I realized they're using the leverage of fear. It's like, you know, an example would be extortion. You know, let's say you're, you know, the mafia, right? They go around and they go into a business and they're like, hey, unless you want something to happen to your business, you're gonna pay me this much every week, and if you do that, I won't touch you, right? So they actually didn't have to even put hands on you. They just told you that if you don't do this, we're gonna do this. And you know, with them, maybe they can actually do that, you know, but I'm saying with the enemy, there's certain limits. So he'll tell you something, and like I said, he's a liar. He'll lie to you, and if you believe it, it gives him power over you. It gives him leverage. And so the fear of death is a huge leverage, because it's almost like the most ultimate fear. So I want to read another scripture that will back my point. Sorry, I had this bookmarked, but I'm flailing around over here and lost it. Oh, man. Help me, Lord. I think it's right here. Shoot. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, Hebrews 2, verse, I believe, 15. Yeah, so it's talking about Jesus here. It says, since the children have flesh and blood, he too shared in their humanity, so that by his death he might break the power of him who holds the power of death, that is the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by the fear of death. So when you're a slave to the fear of death, right, you are easily manipulated by the lie that something's going to happen to you, right? And that's my point. It's like, as long as you have that fear of death, you know the enemy has one up on you, because all he has to do is get someone to come up to you and tell you, we're going to kill you, which he was doing to me all the time. And I'm like, there was no reason for it. Like, I'm telling you, I didn't know these people, but these are the type of people that I'm like, dude, these people probably will kill me, right? Like, imagine someone that would kill you. Like, these were the type of people that were coming to me telling me they're going to kill me, right? And so, God had taught me, right, that they can only go so far, and then I was tested in this over and over. And I remember one time 3 of them were walking towards me, right? And this is when I was like, just decided, I'm like, all right, God, you're going to protect me. Like, and I was just pumped up, right? And these dudes are walking towards me, like, all mugging me. 3 of them. And instead of like going the other way, I walked straight up to them, right? They're walking down the sidewalk. And I walked through them and just shoulder checked 2 of them and was like, it just kept walking. And they're like, who is this mother, you know? But they didn't do nothing. They didn't say nothing after that. It was just like they just said that, and I just kept walking. It was like, I felt so cool after that. Like, I just was like, man, God is protecting me, right? And it's not like I went out of my way to be like, you know, a jerk to people, but I was just like, I was sick of getting pushed around, and I was like, I'm standing, I don't care. Like, you're gonna have to kill me. You know what I mean? But I knew God was protecting me, because like every time I stood, my faith was built. And the fear of death dwindled, and I'm like, okay, I basically solved it by just putting my life in God's hands and being like, God, you're my protection. Because it was out of my hands, you guys. Like, there was way too many people. Like, I couldn't do anything unless God wasn't protecting me. So I'm just gonna tell a couple more stories that happened. One time I'm on the block where I was like staying at, and I was like, selling drugs and stuff out there, allegedly. And there was this dude named Wicked that stayed out there. This dude was just wild, open devil worshiper, right? Wore like satanic shirts all the time. Like, his nickname's Wicked, right? And this guy would like literally sleep in garbage. Like, someone had given him a tent to sleep in, because he was always in the garbage, like sleeping and stuff. And someone gave him a tent, and he ended up just filling this thing up with garbage and then sleeping outside of his tent in a heap of garbage. Like, I'm talking like homeless garbage, like needles, open needles, just filth, disgust, right? Like the worst garbage pits, and he would be swimming in them, right? So it shows you like the mindset of this dude. Well, anyways, one time I'm walking down the block, and he's like coming towards me, and he's just all hyped up and in this like weird mood, or he's like, he pulls out this knife, right? And he puts it up to my neck, and he's like, I'm sick of you walking around here all puffed up like you're this and that. And I was like, and it was crazy because I wasn't scared at all. I'm just like, I got pissed, because I'm like, dude, I stay out here just like you. Like, I was like, Wicked, I live out here. I'm like, this is where I stay, just like you. And I'm like, you better get that thing off my neck. And so, like, when he realized that it didn't put any fear in me, it's like he put it away, and he never threatened me again. And so the last time, I'm wrapping this up, guys. So this was in another city. So all that stuff happened when I was like in Seattle. I had gotten out of Seattle, to try to get in treatment. Ended up leaving treatment after 10 days of just being like going through it, you know, all the like PTSD almost, and just like the crazy like stuff that was going on. It was just like I wasn't healed from this yet, and I wasn't sleeping. Like I went to detox, kicked the heroin, but I got into treatment and I was still like, I was up for like 10 days. So I ended up going out on the street in another city, you know, in Southern Oregon. And so I ended up there, and I'm on the street for a couple weeks, and like the gang stalking was just going crazy down there too. It was a little bit different. So, but anyways, there's this one day where things were just, I could feel something like ramping up, right? And it was like all day, it was just super intense. You know how it kind of goes in like waves where you can feel stuff coming. So this is one of those days. I had met a couple people out there, and they're like, hey, come with us to the river, right? It was like a guy and two girls, and they're like, we're gonna go tubing. And so I go out there with them, and it's just like, we ended up by this campsite, and it was just like I'm walking by these campsites by myself at one point, because they were doing something like going to fill up the things. I went to the bathroom, and just like everyone in the campsites yelling stuff at me. It's just like super nuts. And so I get there. I already had a filled up tube. So I'm sitting there. They're like, okay, we'll meet you back here. And they ended up just like going without me, right? But so I'm sitting there in like shorts and I think like shirtless, right? And I have a tube in my hand, and I'm sitting there, and this truck pulls up to me. And it's kind of sitting there, and I'm not really looking at it, because like, you know, like I realized that a lot of the stuff they do is like they want your attention. They want you to look at something so they could try to put fear in you. So, and this is what they were trying to do. So the dude, I noticed I'm not looking at him or whatever. I'm just ignoring him. But he pulled up like right next to me, and then he starts like, hey, he's like, hey. He's like, you got change for a 20? It's like, dude, I'm sitting here in my like swim trunks with a tube, shirtless, and this dude's asking me if I can, you know, change his 20 out. And I was like, what? I'm like, dude, I'm about to go swimming. I don't have a wallet on me. Right? So I say that this dude can't get nothing from me. I don't know this dude yet. He's like, okay. So he's sitting there, and I'm like tying my shoe. This dude's not pulling off. There's nothing else around. There's no reason he'd be next to me, right? And then, so like, it's like a minute. This dude's still not pulling up. So I look back up at him, and he's like, he's looking at me smiling, and he's pulling a 38 snub nose out of his pocket, right? And he's showing me like smiling all demonic, right? And I was like, all right, man. I was like, have a good day. Right? And then I was just walking away, and I realized it was like, okay, dude's sitting there waiting for me to look up to show me it. So he's obviously not going to do nothing with it. I don't know him yet. This all has to be for a response or fear. So I didn't give it to him. I just go, you know, have a good day, and walked away. And the dude stayed there for a minute, and then just ended up driving off. Didn't say a word after that. And so I say all these things just to kind of make a point about the power of fear and how they leverage fear against you. And so what I noticed about the stalking is, it will change depending on what's affecting you. And so the things that are having a strong effect on you, they will keep doing it. So that tells me that they're looking for a certain result of what they're doing. There's a there's an intelligence to it that it's more than I can make sense of physically. It's like the precision of things, the orchestration of things, and just like the scope of it is so big that there's no way it's physical, you guys. Like, and the fact that everything has stopped for me as I've submitted to God. Like, so this was all in a phase where I'm getting like basically I'm being disciplined by God. And discipline is different than punishment. Punishment is looking backwards, paying for something that you did behind you. Discipline is looking forward to the outcome. In the Bible, it's all over the Bible about this. Like the purpose of discipline is to lead us to life and wisdom. And it's the same thing of disciplining your child. It's not punishment. It's to produce a result. So it's actually a form of God's love. His discipline is always done in the most loving way. So even when it's really, really hard, just know that's what we need. Like, I needed all those experiences, even though they were terrible. Like, the result of it, where I'm at now and where I'm going, I needed to go through all those things. I needed to be absolutely. Yeah, I'm making a video. Hold on. Sorry guys. You know, I needed to be throttled through the mud. I needed to be threatened and put within inches of my life. Like, and that just shows you the level of, you know, being stiff-necked and stubborn and rebellious. And, you know, I had so many things that had to get purged from me. And this was the process that I had to go through. So a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but like, I believe it stops when we learn what we're supposed to learn. But we won't learn until we want to learn. You know, we have to learn the lessons that God wants to give us and teach us. So if we always are focused outward on what's going on, we're not changing. We're just playing the victim card, pointing fingers, and be like, no, this isn't right. This isn't. It's like, okay, how is that helpful? So, yeah, that is what I have today. Like I said, I try to keep a scope on what I'm talking about, and I have a lot more stories and a lot more, I guess, teachings, things that have helped me, things that I've realized that God's shown me. I have to wait until basically I'm waiting on God's timing. So looking forward, all I'm saying is looking forward on this channel. Like, you're gonna see things mixed in that aren't about gang stalking, that are about biblical teachings, about testimonies I have, and you know, teachings, things like that. So don't unfollow me just because I have I share a dream or a testimony or whatever. Like, if you're looking for spiritual encouragement or just the stories, whatever, like, just rock with me, because I'm gonna be making different videos, you know. But always I'm gonna keep it real, and I'm gonna tell you what I've learned to be true, and I'm gonna keep it from a biblical perspective, because I believe that it is straight facts, and that God is more powerful than anything else. And I know that to be true. That's not me guessing. That's what God has shown me. So I'll even get on here soon and tell the reasons why I believe in God, my specific testimony, and things that God has shown me to show me is real. So anyways, guys, I hope you have a good rest of your day. Yeah, and just don't give up. Don't lose hope. Like, stuff can get better. It really can. But you have to be willing to learn and get out of that victim mentality. You know, you can overcome everything you're going through. through the power of God. So, all right. Catch you in the next one.